The pocket watch swung gently from the little girl's hand as she stepped into the boardroom. "Excuse me," the 8-year-old said, her voice small in the massive room. "My dad dropped this." 15 executives sat frozen around the conference table, staring at the child who just interrupted their quarterly meeting. At the head of the table, Elena Wright opened her mouth to call security. Then she saw the watch. Her entire body went rigid. Silver, antique, chain tarnished with age. Even from across the room, she could see the distinctive engraving on the case. Number. That wasn't possible. "Where?" Elena's voice came out strangled. She stood, her hands gripping the edge of the table. "Where did you get that?" The little girl blinked, confused. "It's my dad's. He left it in the break room. I'm trying to find him." Elena walked toward her, each step feeling like moving through water. The room had gone completely silent. Martin Cross, the COO sitting to her right, leaned forward in his chair. "Elena, what's wrong?" She didn't answer. She couldn't, because she was staring at something that should be at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. "Can I see that?" Elena's hand trembled as she reached for the watch. The girl hesitated, pulling it back slightly. "It's my dad's. I need to give it back to him." "I know, I need to see it. Please." Something in Elena's voice, the desperation, the shock, made the girl slowly extend her small hand. Elena took the watch. The metal was cold against her palm, worn smooth by decades of handling. She turned it over. The engraving was still there. W. "Time is the only currency that matters." Her father's initials. His favorite saying. The words he'd had engraved on this watch 30 years ago. Thomas Wright's watch. The watch he wore every single day. The watch he was wearing when his boat exploded 8 years ago, 40 miles off the coast of Maine. The watch that was supposed to be at the bottom of the ocean with his body. "This isn't possible," Elena whispered. "Elena!" Martin's voice was sharp now. "What's going on?" She looked up at him, then back at the little girl. "Who's your father?" "What's his name?" "Jason Reed. He's the janitor." Elena had never heard that name in her life. "How long has he had this watch?" The girl shrugged. "Since I was born, I think." "He's always had it." 8 years. The girl looked about 8 years old. The same amount of time her father had been dead. Elena's mind was spinning. The police report said her father's boat exploded due to an engine malfunction. They found debris, his blood, but never his body. They declared him dead after 6 months of searching. She'd buried an empty casket. And this watch, the one item her father never removed. The one she'd specifically asked the police about. They told her it was lost in the explosion. But here it was, in a janitor's possession. A janitor who worked in her building, who'd had it for 8 years. "Get him!" Elena's voice cut through the stunned silence. "Get the janitor up here, now!" "Elena, let's not overreact," Martin started. "I said get him." Her shout made everyone jump. She looked back at the watch in her hand, at her father's engraving, at the worn silver that he'd touched every day of his life. If this watch was here, if this man had it. "How did your father get this watch?" Elena asked the girl, kneeling down to her eye level. "I don't know. He found it, I think. He never really talks about it." "Found it? Where? How?" Elena stood, still clutching the watch. Her heart was pounding. 8 years of grief, of accepting her father's death, of taking over his company and trying to honor his legacy. All of it was suddenly cracking open. Because if a janitor somehow had her father's watch, a watch that should be at the bottom of the ocean, then someone had been lying to her. And as she looked up and caught the tense expressions around the table, Martin Cross's clenched jaw, the nervous glances of the other executives, Elena Wright realized the lies went deeper than she could have imagined. Security brought Jason Reed to the boardroom 6 minutes later. He walked in wearing his janitor's uniform, his face confused and worried. His eyes immediately found his daughter. "Mia, what are you doing up here?" He looked around at the executive staring at him. "I'm sorry if she bothered anyone." She was just supposed to wait in the break room. Mr. Reed. Elena's voice was controlled, but her knuckles were white around the watch. Where did you get this? Jason looked at the watch in her hand. His expression shifted. Something protective, guarded. That's mine. I asked where you got it. Why does it matter? Martin stood from his chair. Ms. Wright, this is ridiculous. The man obviously bought it at a pawn shop or... Sit down, Martin. Elena didn't look at him. She kept her eyes locked on Jason. This watch belonged to my father. He was wearing it when he died 8 years ago. So I'll ask you one more time. Where did you get it? Jason's face paled. He glanced at his daughter, then back at Elena. I didn't steal it, if that's what you're thinking. Then explain. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. 8 years ago, I was working at a warehouse in New Hampshire, Manchester. I was on the night shift, loading trucks. It was around 2 in the morning when I heard something outside. Went to check and found a man collapsed in the alley behind the building. Elena's breath caught. He was in bad shape, Jason continued. Beaten up, blood everywhere, cuts on his face, his hands. He was barely conscious. I called 911, stayed with him until the ambulance came. He kept trying to say something, but I couldn't understand him. His face was swollen, and he seemed confused, disoriented. What happened to him? Elena's voice was barely a whisper. They took him to Manchester General. I visited him the next day because, I don't know, I felt responsible, like I needed to make sure he was okay. He was alive, but the doctors said he had severe head trauma. They ran tests, scans, everything. He couldn't remember anything. Not his name, where he was from, nothing. Total amnesia. The room was completely silent. Every executive was leaning forward now, listening. The hospital kept him for 3 weeks, Jason said. They ran his fingerprints through every database they could access. They put out missing person reports across 6 states. They had social workers try to jog his memory with photographs, common names, anything. Nobody claimed him. Nobody came looking. It was like he didn't exist. Elena felt tears burning in her eyes. What did they do with him? Eventually, they had to transfer him to a state care facility because they couldn't keep him indefinitely. Medicare wouldn't cover long-term care for someone with no identity, no insurance. He was moved to some facility in New Hampshire after about a month. Which facility? Elena's heart was pounding so hard, she could barely hear her own voice. I don't remember the exact name. It was somewhere outside Manchester. They moved him there, and I lost track of him after that. I tried to visit once, but they wouldn't tell me anything because I wasn't family. And the watch? Jason looked down. Before they transferred him, the hospital gave me his personal effects. Just the clothes he was wearing and that watch. They said if nobody claimed him after 6 months, everything would be discarded or donated. I kept the watch because it seemed important. It was engraved, clearly meant something to someone. I thought maybe someday he'd remember who he was, and I could return it to him. He looked up at Elena. I never knew who he was. I swear. Martin laughed, but it sounded forced. This is absurd. Elena, you can't possibly believe. What did he look like? Elena interrupted, still staring at Jason. The man. What did he look like? Jason thought for a moment. Tall, maybe 6'1" or 2. Gray hair, but not completely gray. Still some brown mixed in. He looked like he was in his 50s. Well built, like he worked out or stayed active. And he had a scar on his left hand, right here. He pointed to the space between his thumb and index finger. Elena's legs nearly gave out. She grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. Her father had that exact scar. He'd gotten it when she was 12, cutting himself while fixing a boat motor at their summer house. She'd held his hand while her mother bandaged it. You're describing Thomas Wright, she said, her voice breaking. I don't know who that is. My father, the founder of this company. He supposedly died in a boating accident 8 years ago. Her voice cracked. Off the coast of Maine. They said the boat exploded. They never found his body. Jason's eyes widened. I had no idea. I swear to God, I had no idea who he was. Martin stood again, his face red. This is insane. You're telling me Thomas Wright survived a boat explosion, somehow ended up in a warehouse alley in New Hampshire, hundreds of miles away, got amnesia, and has been sitting in some care facility for 8 years? That's impossible. Is it? Elena turned to face him. They never found his body, Martin. You were there. You remember. The Coast Guard searched for 3 weeks. They found debris from the boat. They found blood, but no body. They only declared him dead because the evidence suggested nobody could have survived. The explosion. What if there was no explosion? Elena's voice rose. What if someone made it look like an accident? What if someone wanted everyone to think he was dead? The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Martin's face went from red to white in seconds. Elena, that's a serious accusation with absolutely no basis in... Mr. Reed. Elena turned back to Jason, ignoring Martin completely. I need you to remember. Which hospital exactly? Which facility? I need names, addresses, anything you can give me. Jason looked overwhelmed. Manchester General Hospital. I remember that for sure. The facility. God, it's been 8 years. Elena turned to her assistant, who had been standing frozen by the door, already typing furiously on her laptop. Mr. Reed's description is correct, the assistant said, her voice quiet but firm. Based on Manchester General admissions from that time frame, there is only one state-funded long-term facility in the area that accepts unidentified patients. Which one? Elena demanded. Cedar Brook State Care Facility. Elena looked back at Martin, who now looked pale. Elena, you must listen to reason. Martin pleaded, his voice losing its edge. The chances of this being Thomas are astronomical. Think of the scandal this will cause if you are wrong. I'm not wrong, Elena said. I need to make some calls. I need to make some calls, Elena said. She looked at her assistant, who'd been standing frozen by the door. Clear the room. Everyone out except Mr. Reed. Martin, you stay. The executives filed out quickly, whispering to each other. Jason picked up Mia and held her close. Not you, Mr. Reed, Elena said. I need you to stay. Please. Once the room was empty except for the 4 of them, Elena, Martin, Jason holding Mia. Elena pulled out her phone. Her hands were shaking as she dialed. Detective Morris? This is Elena Wright, Thomas Wright's daughter. Yes, I know it's been 8 years. I need you to reopen my father's case. Martin's jaw tightened. I have new information. Significant information. She looked directly at Martin as she spoke. I have a witness who saw my father alive after the supposed accident. I need you to check a facility called Cedar Brook State Care in New Hampshire for a John Doe admitted 8 years ago with amnesia. She listened for a moment. I understand it sounds unusual, but I'm holding my father's engraved pocket watch right now, and the man who has it just told me exactly how he found my father beaten and left for dead. Please, just check. She hung up and looked at Martin. You're unusually quiet. What do you want me to say, Elena? This is madness. You're chasing a fantasy because some janitor has a watch that looks like your father's. Doesn't just look like it, it is his. She held it up. Look at the engraving. My father had this made when I was born. Time is the only currency that matters. He said it every time someone told him he worked too much. This is his watch, Martin. And Mr. Reed's description matches my father exactly, down to the scar he got when I was 12. Coincidence? You don't believe in coincidences? You taught me that when you were training me to run this company. Martin's expression hardened. What I believe is that you're not thinking clearly. Your father's death was investigated thoroughly. The Coast Guard, the police, the insurance company, everyone agreed it was an accident. You need to accept that and move on. Why are you so determined to shut this down? Elena stepped closer to him. Why aren't you even curious? If there's even the slightest chance my father is alive. There isn't. The finality in his voice made her stop. She studied his face, seeing him clearly for the first time in years. Martin Cross had been her father's right hand since the company started. When her father died, Martin stepped up, helped her run the company, guided her through the impossible grief. She'd trusted him completely. But right now, looking at him, she saw something she'd never noticed before. Fear. "You know something," she said quietly. "I don't. You're lying. Elena." "Get out." Her voice was cold. "Get out of this room. Get out of my building. You're suspended pending investigation. You can't suspend me. The board?" "I'm majority shareholder and CEO. Yes, I can. Get out before I have security remove you." Martin stared at her, his jaw working. For a moment she thought he might argue, might fight back. But then he grabbed his briefcase and walked out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Elena stood in silence, her heart racing. Then she looked at Jason and Mia. "Mr. Reed, I need your help. I need you to come with me to New Hampshire." Jason looked down at his daughter, then back at Elena. "Ma'am, I appreciate what you're going through, but I have a daughter. I can't just drop everything and—" "I'll pay you $20,000 to come with me and help identify the man you found. If it's not my father, you keep the money anyway." "If it is him." Her voice caught. "If it is him and you help me get him out of there, I'll double it." Jason's eyes widened. 40,000. "I need you. You're the only person who's seen him, the only one who knows what happened that night. And if my father really is alive, if he's been in some facility for 8 years with no memory, thinking nobody cares about him." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Please, I have to find him." Jason looked at his daughter. Mia tugged on his sleeve. "Dad, you should help her. She's really sad." He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and nodded. "Okay, I'll help you." Elena felt a wave of relief so intense she had to sit down. "Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll leave first thing tomorrow morning." "There's one thing," Jason said. "I don't have anyone to watch Mia. Her mom died when she was born. It's just us. Bring her. We'll make it work." That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She sat in her father's old office. She'd never had the heart to change anything, staring at photographs on his desk. Him at the company's founding, him cutting the ribbon at their first factory, him with her at her college graduation, his arm around her shoulders, both of them grinning. She picked up the phone and called Detective Morris again. "Did you find anything?" Morris's voice was tired. "I contacted Manchester General. They have records of a John Doe matching your description admitted August 22nd, 8 years ago. But Elena, that doesn't mean—" "What about Cedarbrook?" "I called them. They won't release patient information over the phone, even to police, without a warrant. Medical privacy laws. But they did confirm they have several long-term residents who've been there for 8 years or more." "Can you get a warrant?" "Based on what? A watch and an 8-year-old hospital record? No judge is going to—" "What if I can prove it's him? What if I go there, see him, and it's really my father? Then we'll need DNA confirmation, dental records, the works." "But Elena—" Morris paused. "Even if this man is Thomas, even if he's alive, we'll need to investigate what happened. If someone really did attack him and stage his death, that's attempted murder, conspiracy." "This gets complicated fast." "I don't care about complicated. I care about finding my father." She hung up and noticed something on his desk she'd never paid attention to before. A small leather notebook, worn and faded. She picked it up and opened it. Inside were her father's notes, financial calculations, meeting reminders, random thoughts. She flipped through pages, most of them mundane. Then she reached entries from 8 years ago, right before he died. August 15th. "Discrepancies in overseas accounts. Numbers don't match. Need to dig deeper." August 17th. "Found it. Someone's been moving money. Large amounts. Shell companies. This goes deep." August 19th. "Confronted C about the accounts. He denied everything. Says I'm seeing things, but I'm not crazy. The money is missing." August 20th. C called emergency meeting. Says we need to talk privately. Meeting him at the marina tomorrow morning early. Elena's blood ran cold. C. The marina. Her father died, supposedly died, the morning of August 21st. His boat exploded at 6 a.m. C. Who was C? She grabbed her laptop and pulled up company records from 8 years ago. The board of directors. She scanned the names. Charles Remington, board chairman. He'd been with the company since the beginning, one of the original investors. He still served on the board now. Her father was meeting Charles the morning he disappeared. Elena's hands shook as she pulled up Charles's financial records, what she could access as CEO, his salary, his stock options, his investments. Everything looked normal on the surface, but her father had found something worth killing over. She needed to talk to Charles, but not yet. Not until she knew for certain her father was alive. She spent the rest of the night going through old financial records, looking for the discrepancies her father had mentioned. The numbers were buried deep, hidden in legitimate-looking transactions. But once she knew what to look for, she saw it. Millions of dollars moving through overseas shell companies. Money that should have been in Wright Industries' accounts but wasn't. By the time dawn broke, Elena had found over $12 million in missing funds. All of it traced back through a web of companies to one name, Charles Remington. Her father had discovered Charles was embezzling, and Charles had made sure her father couldn't tell anyone. They left Boston at 7 a.m. Elena drove her own car, a black sedan. Jason sat in the passenger seat, looking uncomfortable in the expensive leather interior. Mia was in the back with her tablet and headphones. "You didn't have to bring her," Elena said as they merged onto the highway. "I don't have anyone to watch her. Her mom died during childbirth. It's just the two of us. I'm sorry. It's okay. We make it work." They drove in silence for a while. Elena's hands gripped the steering wheel tight enough to hurt. She hadn't slept. Her mind kept racing through everything she'd found, everything she'd learned. "I found something last night," she said finally. "In my father's notes. He was investigating financial fraud at the company before he disappeared. He'd found evidence someone was embezzling millions." Jason glanced at her. "You think that's why he was attacked?" "I'm sure of it. He wrote that he was meeting someone at the marina the morning his boat exploded. Someone he identified only as C." "Who's C?" "Charles Remington, our board chairman. He's been with the company since the beginning." Her voice was bitter. "He was my father's friend. They started the company together, and I think he tried to kill him." Jason was quiet for a moment. "If that's true, if you're really going after someone that powerful, you need to be careful. People like that don't let go of their secrets easily." "I know, but what choice do I have? My father is out there somewhere, alive, and he's been abandoned for 8 years. I can't just let this go." "I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying watch your back." They reached Manchester by mid-morning. The city looked different in daylight. Industrial, struggling, a manufacturing town trying to reinvent itself. Elena pulled into the parking lot of Manchester General Hospital. "Why are we stopping here?" Jason asked. "I want to see the records myself." "Talk to whoever treated him." The records department was in the basement. A woman named Patricia sat behind a desk covered in folders and coffee stains. She looked like she'd been there since the hospital opened. "Help you?" she asked without looking up. "I need information about a patient admitted 8 years ago," Elena said. "A John Doe, severe head trauma." 8 years is a long time, honey. You got a date? August 22nd, around 2 in the morning. Patricia typed slowly on her ancient computer. "John Doe? Yeah, here we go. Admitted 2:47 a.m. Multiple contusions, subdural hematoma, broken ribs, severe head trauma. No ID, no wallet, no nothing. Just the clothes on his back. Who treated him? Dr. Rajesh Kumar. But he doesn't work here anymore. Moved to California about 5 years ago. What about nurses? Anyone who might remember." Patricia scrolled through the file. Nurse Lisa Chen was on duty that night. She still works here, night shift in the ER. Can I talk to her? She won't be in until 7 tonight. Elena looked at her watch. It was only 11 a.m. "We'll come back." Ma'am, if you don't mind me asking, why are you looking into a case from 8 years ago? Elena pulled out her phone and showed Patricia a photo of her father. Because I think this John Doe is my father. He disappeared 8 years ago. Everyone said he was dead, but I think he survived and nobody knew who he was. Patricia stared at the photo, then back at her computer. Jesus, you really think that's him? I'm about to find out. Cedar Brook State Care Facility sat 20 minutes outside Manchester, surrounded by pine trees and chain-link fence. The building was institutional, gray brick, barred windows, the kind of place that looked more like a prison than a care facility. Elena's heart pounded as she parked in the visitor lot. You okay? Jason asked. No, but I'm going in anyway. They left Mia in the car with snacks and her tablet, promising to be back in 20 minutes. The lobby smelled like disinfectant and overcooked vegetables. A receptionist sat behind thick glass, barely glancing at them. Visiting hours end at 4, she said flatly. I'm looking for a patient, Elena said. A John Doe admitted 8 years ago from Manchester General. You family? I think I am. I think he's my father. The receptionist finally looked up. You think? He was admitted with amnesia. No ID. I've been searching for him for 8 years. The receptionist picked up a phone and spoke quietly. Then she hung up and pointed down the hall. Administrator's office, third door on the left. The administrator was a thin man in his 60s named Dr. Philip Warren. He had kind eyes but a tired face, like he'd seen too much sadness in this place. Ms. Wright, he said after Elena introduced herself. This is highly unusual. We have strict protocols for patient privacy, even for John Does. I understand. But if this man is Thomas Wright, if he's my father, he has a family. He has a daughter who's been grieving him for 8 years. He has a company, a life, people who love him. He deserves to know who he is. Dr. Warren studied her for a long moment. Let me pull the file. He left the room and came back 5 minutes later with a thin folder. He sat down and opened it. We do have a long-term resident matching the description. Transferred here in September 8 years ago from Manchester General. Severe retrograde amnesia with no recovery of memory to date. Physically healthy but psychologically fragile. He's been cooperative, quiet, keeps to himself mostly. Can I see him? You understand he won't recognize you. If it is your father, he won't know who you are. I understand. And I can't just release him to you without proper documentation. DNA tests, legal paperwork, court orders. Even if you confirm it's him, the process could take weeks. I just need to see him first. Please. Dr. Warren closed the folder. This way. They walked through corridors that smelled like cleaning solution and depression. Patients wandered past in hospital gowns, some muttering to themselves, others staring at nothing. Elena's heart broke with every step. They stopped outside a door marked 27B. He's in here, Dr. Warren said. We call him John. He spends most of his time alone. Drawing, mostly. He's quite talented. Her father used to draw. Mechanical designs, architectural sketches, pages and pages filled with his meticulous lines. Dr. Warren knocked gently. John, you have visitors. He opened the door. The room was small. A bed with a thin blanket, a metal dresser, a single chair by the window. A man sat in the chair with his back to them, hunched over a sketch pad. John? Dr. Warren said again. Someone's here to see you. The man turned around slowly. Elena's world stopped. He was older, thinner, his hair completely gray now, longer than he used to wear it. He had a beard he'd never had before, deep lines around his eyes, his face gaunt. But it was him. Those eyes, that nose, the shape of his jaw, the way he tilted his head slightly when he was confused. It was her father. Dad? The word came out broken, barely a whisper. The man, her father, looked at her with no recognition at all. Just polite confusion, maybe a hint of concern at her obvious distress. I'm sorry, he said quietly. His voice was the same, a little rougher maybe, but the same. Do I know you? Elena couldn't breathe. 8 years. 8 years of grief, of crying, of visiting an empty grave. And he was here, alive, sitting in this terrible room, not knowing who he was, not knowing who she was. Her legs gave out. Jason caught her, lowering her gently into the chair by the door. She pressed her hands over her mouth, trying to hold back the sobs. "I'm Elena," she managed. "Elena Wright. I'm your daughter." Her father stared at her. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, confusion, longing, but no recognition. "I'm sorry," he said again. "I don't remember having a daughter. I don't remember anything from before I came here." Jason knelt beside Elena's chair. "It's okay," he said softly. "We're not here to upset you. We've just been looking for you for a very long time." Thomas, John, set down his sketch pad. Elena could see the drawing from where she sat. It was a boat, a sailboat, detailed and perfect, just like the one her father used to own. "Are you sure you have the right person?" Thomas asked. He sounded gentle, worried for her. "I'm nobody. Just a man with no past." "You're not nobody." Elena wiped her eyes. "You're Thomas Wright. You're a father, a businessman, an inventor. You built things, you changed the world, and 8 years ago, someone tried to kill you because you discovered they were stealing from you." Thomas touched the back of his head absently. "They told me I had an accident." "It wasn't an accident." He looked down at his hands, at the scar between his thumb and index finger. He traced it with his other hand, the gesture so familiar it made Elena's heart ache. "I have dreams sometimes," he said quietly, "about a little girl, brown hair, brown eyes. She's laughing. We're at a beach, flying a kite. The sky is blue and everything feels warm and safe." He looked up at Elena. "Is that real? Or just something my broken brain invented?" "It's real." Elena's voice cracked. "That was me. I was 7. You took me to Cape Cod. It was my first time flying a kite, and you taught me how. I was so happy." Thomas's eyes filled with tears. "I thought it was just a dream." "It wasn't. None of it was. And I'm going to help you remember." Dr. Warren cleared his throat. "Ms. Wright, perhaps we should step outside and discuss next steps. This is overwhelming for everyone." Elena didn't want to leave. She wanted to stay, to hold her father's hand, to tell him everything she'd been through. But she forced herself to stand. "I'll be right back," she told Thomas. "I'm not leaving. I promise." In the hallway, Dr. Warren spoke in a low voice. "If you truly believe this man is Thomas Wright, you'll need to prove it legally. DNA tests, dental records, documentation. The process could take weeks, possibly months. I don't have weeks. Someone tried to kill him 8 years ago. If they find out he's alive, they'll try again." "Ms. Wright, that's a serious allegation. It's the truth." She pulled out her phone and showed him the photographs of her father's notebook. "This is from 8 years ago. My father discovered embezzlement at his company. He was meeting someone the morning his boat exploded. That someone had him attacked, staged his death, and paid to keep him here." Dr. Warren's face went pale. "You're saying someone has been paying for his care here? For 8 years? How else would an unidentified patient stay in a private facility? Check your records. Someone's been paying his bills." Dr. Warren hurried back to his office. Elena and Jason followed. He pulled up files on his computer, scrolling through financial records. "Oh God," he whispered. "What?" "His care has been paid through an offshore account. Monthly automatic payments for 8 years. I never questioned it because the money always came on time, but..." He looked at Elena. "This is highly irregular. We should be getting state funding for an indigent patient, but instead, someone's been privately funding his stay." "Who's set up the account?" "It's anonymous, handled through a law firm in the Cayman Islands." "Can you trace it?" "Not without a court order." Elena pulled out her phone. "I know someone who can." She called Detective Morris and explained everything. He listened in silence, then said, "Elena, this is bigger than we thought. If someone really has been funding his care secretly, that's consciousness of guilt. That's evidence of a crime. Can you get a warrant to trace the account?" I can try, but even with a warrant, offshore accounts take time to crack. We might be talking weeks or months. I don't have that kind of time. What are you going to do? I'm bringing him home. Today. Elena. Someone tried to erase my father from existence. They've kept him prisoner for 8 years. I'm not leaving him here one more day. She hung up and looked at Dr. Warren. What would it take to release him into my custody today? It's not that simple. There are legal protocols, medical considerations. How much? Excuse me. How much money would it take to expedite everything? To get him released today? Dr. Warren looked uncomfortable. Ms. Wright, I can't just... $50,000. A donation to this facility. Plus, I'll have my lawyers handle all the paperwork, liability waivers, everything. I'll take full responsibility for his care, but I need him out of here today. Dr. Warren stared at her. You're serious? Completely. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone and made a call. 2 hours later, Elena's lawyers had faxed over power of attorney documents, medical releases, liability waivers, and a cashier's check for $50,000. Dr. Warren expedited the discharge paperwork, calling in favors and cutting through bureaucratic red tape. Elena stood in her father's room, watching him pack his few belongings. A change of clothes, his sketch pad and pencils, nothing else. I don't understand why you're doing this, Thomas said. You don't even know me. Yes, I do. You're my father. You taught me everything that matters. You used to say that time is the only currency that matters because it's the one thing we can never get back. She held up his watch. You had this engraved with those words. I gave it back to Jason after he showed it to me. I want you to have it now. Thomas took the watch with trembling hands. He stared at the engraving, his fingers tracing the letters. Time is the only currency that matters, he whispered. I've heard that before. In my dreams. It wasn't a dream. It was a memory. They left Cedarbrook as the sun was setting. Jason drove, with Thomas in the passenger seat and Elena in the back with Mia. Where are we going? Thomas asked. Back to Boston, Elena said. Back home. Home, he repeated, like testing the word. Will I be safe there? I'll make sure of it. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You made a mistake. Turn around now or there will be consequences. Elena deleted it and looked out the window. Charles Remington wanted to threaten her? Fine. She had evidence now. She had her father. And she wasn't backing down. They were 30 minutes outside Boston when Jason noticed the headlights. We're being followed, he said quietly. Elena turned. A black SUV was behind them, maintaining a careful distance but clearly tailing them. How long? She asked. Since we left Cedarbrook. I wasn't sure at first, but they've made every turn we have. Elena pulled out her phone to call 911. Before she could dial, the SUV accelerated, closing the distance fast. Hold on, Jason said. The SUV pulled alongside them. The passenger window rolled down. Elena saw the gun. Get down! Jason yanked the wheel hard right, swerving onto the shoulder. The SUV overshot them, brake lights flaring red in the darkness. Mia screamed. Thomas gripped the door handle, his face pale. Jason floored the accelerator, the sedan's engine screaming as they shot forward. The SUV spun around in the middle of the highway and gave chase. Call 911, Elena shouted. Her hands shook as she dialed. This is 911. What's your emergency? We're on Highway 93 southbound near exit 37. Black SUV is chasing us with weapons. They're trying to run us off the road. The SUV rammed them from behind. The sedan fishtailed. Jason fought for control, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Stay on the line, the operator said. Units are being dispatched. The SUV pulled alongside them again. Elena could see 2 figures inside, both wearing dark clothes, both armed. Exit ahead, Jason shouted. Hold on. He cut across 2 lanes at the last second, taking the exit ramp at 70 miles an hour. The sedan's tires screamed. They slid sideways, Jason fighting the wheel, barely maintaining control. The SUV tried to follow but missed the turn, sliding past on the highway. By the time it recovered and found the exit, Jason had disappeared into surface streets, weaving through a residential neighborhood. He pulled into a parking garage 3 blocks away, found a dark corner on the 3rd level, and killed the lights and engine. They sat in silence, breathing hard. Mia was crying quietly. Elena held her, whispering that everything was okay. Thomas stared straight ahead, his hands trembling. "Who were those people?" "People who want you dead," Elena said grimly. "The same people who tried to kill you 8 years ago." "Why? What did I do?" "You found out someone was stealing from your company, and they made sure you couldn't tell anyone." Sirens wailed in the distance. Jason pulled out his phone. "Police are setting up roadblocks. They're looking for the SUV." Elena watched him, her heart still pounding. "How did you do that?" she asked, her voice shaking. "That driving, you weren't just reacting, you were maneuvering." Jason let out a long breath, his eyes still scanning the garage entrance. "Before Mia was born, before this job, I was in the military. Security details. Drove convoys in much worse places than this." Elena stared at him, seeing him in a completely new light. Not just a kind man, but a protector. Elena's phone rang. She looked at the screen. "Martin Cross," she answered on speaker. "What?" "Elena, thank God. Are you all right? I heard there was an incident on the highway." "How did you hear that?" "The police scanner. I've been monitoring it since you left. I was worried about you. Someone just tried to kill us, Martin." "Someone in a black SUV with guns." "My God, where are you? Are you safe?" There was genuine panic in his voice, genuine fear. Elena had been so sure Martin was involved, but now she wasn't certain. "Who knew we were going to New Hampshire?" she asked. "I don't know. You, me, the security team who saw you leave." "Charles Remington." "Did you tell Charles?" Silence on the other end. "Martin, did you tell Charles?" "He called me after you left. He was looking for you. He said there was an urgent board matter that needed your signature. I told him you'd taken a personal day and gone to New Hampshire." Elena closed her eyes. "Did you tell him why?" "No, I just said it was personal." "Why?" "Elena, what's going on?" "Charles Remington is behind everything. He was embezzling from the company. My father found out and Charles had him attacked. He staged the boat explosion, paid to keep my father in a care facility with amnesia, and now he's trying to finish what he started 8 years ago." "That's insane. Charles has been with the company since the beginning. He's a friend." "He's a murderer, and he just tried to kill all of us." She hung up and looked at Jason. "We need somewhere safe. Somewhere Charles doesn't know about." "The Cape Cod house," Thomas said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. "I remember it," he said, his voice distant. "A gray house with white shutters. A deck overlooking the ocean. I built it. I built it myself. Years ago." Elena felt tears in her eyes. "You remember the beach house?" "I remember working on it. The smell of sawdust. The sound of waves. I don't remember why it was important, but I know it's safe. I know we'd be safe there." "That's where we're going," Elena said. "Jason, can you drive?" "Yes." They stayed in the parking garage for another 20 minutes, making sure the SUV hadn't found them. Then Jason carefully navigated out through side streets, avoiding major highways until they were clear of the city. The drive to Cape Cod took 2 hours. Elena spent the time on her phone, coordinating with Detective Morris, her lawyers, and her head of security. She wanted security teams at the beach house immediately. She wanted every piece of evidence about Charles Remington compiled and ready to present to the police. And she wanted answers. "Detective Morris," she said on one call, "have you traced the offshore account yet?" "Working on it, but Elena, I need you to know, Charles Remington is a very powerful man. He has connections, lawyers, resources. Even with evidence, going after him won't be easy. I don't care about easy. I care about justice." When they finally reached the beach house, it was past midnight. The house looked exactly as Elena remembered: weathered gray shingles, white shutters that needed painting, a deck that wrapped around the front facing the ocean. Thomas stood in the driveway, staring at the house. In the moonlight, Elena could see tears on his face. "I built this," he whispered. "I remember. I designed it. Every room, every window. This was—" He closed his eyes. "This was going to be our family's place. Somewhere safe. Somewhere peaceful." "It still is," Elena said, taking his hand. They went inside. The house was dusty from 8 years of minimal use, but it still felt like home. Elena had kept it after her father died, unable to let it go. Now she understood why. Some part of her had always known he might come back. While Jason got Mia settled in one of the bedrooms, Elena led her father to the study. On the wall hung a painting of a lighthouse. "There's something behind this," she said. "Isn't there?" Thomas stepped forward. His hand moved almost automatically, lifting the painting off the wall. Behind it was a safe with a combination lock. "Do you remember the combination?" Thomas's fingers moved to the dial. They hesitated for a moment, then spun. 7, 23, 95. The safe clicked open. Inside was a blue folder, thick with documents. Elena pulled it out with trembling hands. She opened it and saw bank statements, wire transfer records, and handwritten notes in her father's careful script, all documenting Charles Remington's embezzlement. Over $15 million stolen from Wright Industries over 6 years. "This is it," she whispered. "This proves everything." Her phone rang. Detective Morris. "Elena, we've been trying to locate Charles Remington. He's not at his home or office. His personal cell is off. We think he's running. Send units to the airport, private terminals. He'll try to leave the country." "Already done." "But, Elena, there's something else. We traced the offshore account funding your father's care at Cedarbrook. It took some doing, but we cracked it. And the account was set up by a law firm in the Cayman Islands. The firm's sole client is a shell company called Trinity Holdings. And Trinity Holdings is owned by Charles Remington." Elena felt a cold satisfaction. "That's proof. Direct proof he knew my father was alive and was keeping him hidden. It's strong evidence, yes. Combined with your father's testimony about the attack and the financial records you found, we have enough to bring charges. I've briefed the DA. They're preparing an arrest warrant now." "How long?" "A few hours. We'll have him by morning." Elena hung up and looked at her father. He was staring at the documents, his face pale. "I remember now," he said quietly. "Not everything, but enough. Charles was stealing from the company. I confronted him. He denied it, said I was paranoid, overworked. He convinced me to meet him at the marina to talk privately. He said he could explain everything." "What happened at the marina?" "I went to my boat to wait for him. He showed up with 2 men I'd never seen before. They attacked me, beat me. I tried to fight back, but there were 3 of them." He touched the back of his head. "One of them hit me with something, a pipe or a bat. Everything went fuzzy after that. I remember them dragging me off the boat. I remember the explosion. They must have set it after. Then nothing. Just darkness. They left you for dead. But I didn't die. Jason found me. He saved my life." Elena looked through the study doorway to where Jason was sitting on the couch, watching over Mia, who'd fallen asleep. He'd risked everything to help them. A stranger who'd kept a promise to return a watch. "Come on," she said to her father. "You should rest." "We all should. Tomorrow we finish this." But as she said it, she heard a sound outside. Car engines, multiple vehicles. Jason heard it too. He was up in an instant, moving to the window. "Elena, we've got company." She joined him and looked out. 3 black SUVs surrounded the house, their headlights cutting through the darkness. Men in suits climbed out, and in the center stood Charles Remington. He walked calmly up to the front door and knocked. Elena's hand went to her phone, but Charles called out, "I wouldn't call the police just yet, Elena. I think we should talk first. I have nothing to say to you. I think you do. You have something that belongs to me, a blue folder, and I have information about what really happened 8 years ago. Information you'll want to hear." Elena looked at her father, then at Jason. They were outnumbered and trapped. But if she could keep Charles talking, the police might have time to get here. She opened the door, keeping the chain lock engaged. "You have 2 minutes." Charles smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "May I come in? It's cold out here." "Talk from there." "Very well." He looked past her into the house. "Hello, Thomas." "It's been a long time." Thomas stepped forward, his face hard. "You tried to kill me. I did what I had to do. You were going to destroy everything we built, everything I built. By stealing $15 million? By taking what I was owed." Charles's composure cracked. "I put 30 years into that company, 30 years while Thomas Wright got all the credit, all the glory. I was just the money man, the boring board chairman. Nobody wrote articles about me. Nobody put my face on magazine covers." "So you stole from him," Elena said. "And when he found out, you had him murdered." "I didn't want him dead. I just wanted him quiet, out of the way. The boat explosion was supposed to kill him quickly, but the idiot contractors I hired botched it. They beat him instead of making it clean. Then they panicked and staged the explosion anyway. And when you found out he survived?" Charles's smile returned. "I made sure he stayed hidden. Paid for the best care money could buy. He was comfortable, safe, out of the way. I thought it was a win-win. He got to live, I got to run the company. You kept him prisoner for 8 years. I kept a secret. There's a difference." Elena felt rage boiling inside her. "You destroyed his life. You made his daughter think he was dead. You stole his company. I saved his company. Under my guidance, Wright Industries tripled in value. I made you a billionaire, Elena. You should be thanking me. The police are on their way. They have the evidence. They know about the offshore accounts, the payments to Cedarbrook, everything." Charles's expression darkened. "Which is why we need to make a deal." "No deals. You don't want to hear my offer? There's nothing you could possibly. I'll give you $50 million, right now. Transfer it to any account you want. In exchange, you destroy that folder and tell the police this was all a misunderstanding. Your father had a breakdown, wandered off, ended up in a care facility. The embezzlement was a simple accounting error that I'll pay back in full. Everyone wins." Elena stared at him in disbelief. "You think I'd take your blood money?" "I think you're smart enough to realize that fighting me will destroy your company. The scandal alone will crash the stock. Shareholders will sue. Employees will lose their jobs. Everything your father built will collapse." He leaned closer. "Or you take my money, keep quiet, and everyone lives happily ever after. Accept the truth. The truth is overrated. Ask your father. He spent 8 years with no truth at all, and he survived just fine." Thomas stepped up beside Elena. "I survived, but I didn't live. You took 8 years from me. 8 years I'll never get back. You took my daughter's father. You took everything. And I'm offering to pay for it. $50 million. Final offer." "No," Elena said. "You're going to prison." Charles's face hardened. "I was hoping you'd be reasonable." He stepped back and gestured to his men. They started moving toward the house. "Jason!" Elena shouted. "Get Mia upstairs!" Jason was already moving, scooping up the sleeping girl and running for the stairs. Elena slammed the door and locked it. "Back door," her father said. "There's a back door to the beach." They ran through the house. Behind them, glass shattered as Charles's men broke through the front door. Elena grabbed the blue folder in her father's hand, pulling him through the kitchen. The back door opened onto the deck. Beyond it, a wooden staircase led down to the beach. They ran, their feet pounding on the weathered planks. Behind them, men shouted. Footsteps thundered through the house. They hit the beach, sand sliding under their feet. The ocean roared ahead, dark and endless. "Where do we go?" Thomas asked. "There." Elena pointed to the north. "The lighthouse. It's a mile up the beach. There's a keeper's cottage with a phone." They ran along the shoreline, the sand making every step exhausting. Elena could hear the men behind them, gaining ground. A gunshot cracked the night. Sand exploded 3 feet to Elena's left. Don't shoot them, Charles's voice carried over the wind. I need that folder. They kept running. Elena's lungs burned. Her father was struggling. 8 years of sedentary life in a care facility catching up with him. She grabbed his arm, pulling him forward. Ahead, the lighthouse beacon swept across the water, a promise of safety. But they weren't going to make it. The men were too close, too fast. Elena could hear their breathing, their footsteps pounding the sand. Then, from behind them, sirens wailed. Red and blue lights flooded the beach. Police cars screeched to a stop by the house. Officers poured out, weapons drawn. This is the Boston police. Drop your weapons. Charles's men hesitated, looking back. The distraction was all they needed. Keep going, Elena shouted. They reached the lighthouse as the police swarmed the beach. Elena pounded on the keeper's cottage door. An elderly man answered, shocked by the chaos. Call 911, Elena gasped. Tell them we need backup at the Cape Cod lighthouse. The man ran for his phone. Elena turned and saw Charles standing on the beach, hands raised as police surrounded him. His men were on the ground, being handcuffed. Detective Morris walked over to Charles, pulled out handcuffs, and began reading him his rights. Charles Remington, you're under arrest for attempted murder, embezzlement, fraud, and kidnapping. Charles's face was a mask of rage. He looked at Elena standing by the lighthouse, the blue folder still clutched in her hand. You just destroyed Wright Industries, he shouted. Everything your father built. No, Elena called back. I saved it. 2 hours later, they were sitting in the keeper's cottage, wrapped in blankets. Mia was asleep on a couch, Jason beside her. Thomas sat by the window, watching the ocean. Detective Morris sat across from Elena, reviewing the contents of the blue folder. This is solid evidence, he said. Combined with your father's testimony and the financial trail we've uncovered, Charles is looking at 25 to 30 years minimum. Good, Elena said. There's one thing I don't understand, Morris said. How did Charles know you'd come here? To the beach house? Elena thought about it. Then her eyes widened. Martin, I told him yesterday that we might come here. He must have told Charles. We'll need to question Martin as well. If he was knowingly assisting. He wasn't. Martin's not involved. He's just guilty of trusting the wrong person. She looked at Detective Morris. Charles was my father's friend. Martin's friend. We all trusted him. We never suspected. That's how people like Charles operate. They hide in plain sight. Elena looked over at her father. He was still staring at the ocean, his expression distant. Dad? She said softly. Are you okay? He turned to her, and for the first time since they'd found him, he smiled. Really smiled. I was just thinking about that kite. At Cape Cod. You were 7. You couldn't get it off the ground, and you were so frustrated. I told you that flying takes patience, that you can't force it. You have to wait for the wind. I remember. I thought you were just trying to make me feel better. I was. But it was also true. He looked at the blue folder in Detective Morris's hands. I waited 8 years for the wind to change, for someone to find me. I never gave up hope that someone would remember me. Elena moved to sit beside him. I never forgot you. Not for one day. He took her hand. I'm starting to remember more. Small things. Your mother's laugh. The way you used to fall asleep reading in your room. The first time we launched a boat I'd built. He squeezed her hand. It's coming back. Slowly. But it's coming back. Jason stood and walked over to them. Mr. Wright, I'm glad you're okay. And I'm sorry I couldn't do more 8 years ago. You saved my life, Thomas said. You called for help. You kept my watch, and you helped my daughter find me. I'd say that's more than enough. Elena looked at Jason and felt something shift in her chest. Over the past 2 days, he'd been there for every terrifying moment. He'd risked his life and his daughter's safety to help her. He'd never hesitated, never backed down. Thank you, she said, for everything. You're welcome. Their eyes met and held for a moment too long to be casual. Mia stirred on the couch and sat up, rubbing her eyes. Dad, what's happening? It's over, sweetheart. Everything's okay now. Can we go home? Soon. Detective Morris stood. I need to get back to Boston. We have a lot of processing to do. But Elena, you and your father will need to come to the station tomorrow to give formal statements. We'll be there. After Morris left, they sat in comfortable silence, watching the lighthouse beam sweep across the water. The danger was over. Charles was in custody. The truth was out. But Elena knew the real work was just beginning. The next morning they drove back to Boston. The news had already broken. Charles Remington arrested. Thomas Wright found alive after 8 years. The media was in a frenzy. Elena's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Board members, investors, reporters, all demanding answers. She turned it off and focused on what mattered. Her father was alive. That was all that mattered. At Wright Industries headquarters, Elena called an emergency board meeting. With Charles gone, they needed to elect a new chairman and address the embezzlement scandal. She stood at the head of the conference table, her father beside her. The board members stared in shock. Thomas Wright, presumed dead for 8 years, standing before them like a ghost. I know you have questions, Elena said, and I'll answer all of them. But first, I need you to know that Wright Industries will survive this. We will rebuild. We will be stronger than ever. Because that's what my father taught me. That's what he built this company on. Resilience, truth, and doing what's right, no matter the cost. Over the next few weeks, Elena worked tirelessly. She brought in forensic accountants to trace every dollar Charles had stolen. She implemented new oversight systems to prevent future fraud. She fired everyone who'd been complicit in the cover-up. And slowly, Wright Industries began to heal. Thomas went through extensive therapy, working with specialists to help recover his memories. More came back every day. Faces, names, events. Not everything, but enough. Enough to reclaim his life. Jason continued working at Wright Industries, but not as a janitor. Elena had been serious about her offer. After learning of his military security background and witnessing his capability firsthand during the chase, she offered him the position of head of security. He had proven himself loyal, brave, and exceptionally trustworthy. And as the weeks turned into months, something else developed between them. It started with coffee meetings to discuss security protocols, then dinners to review budget proposals, then walks through the city, talking about everything except work. One evening, 6 months after finding her father, Elena stood on the rooftop of Wright Industries with Jason, watching the sunset paint Boston in shades of orange and gold. "How's your dad doing?" Jason asked. "Better. He remembered my birthday yesterday. Made me pancakes, just like he used to. They were terrible, but I didn't care." Jason laughed. "And Mia adores him. She calls him Grandpa Thomas now. I heard. It's perfect." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. "Elena," Jason said, "I need to tell you something." "What?" That day Mia walked into the boardroom with the watch. I had no idea it would lead to all this. I thought I'd lose my job, maybe get arrested for theft. I never imagined that you'd end up here, that I'd end up anywhere near someone like you. She looked at him. "What do you mean, someone like me?" "A CEO, a billionaire. Someone brilliant and driven and completely out of my league." Elena smiled. "Jason, you saved my father's life twice. You risked everything to help me find the truth. You're exactly the kind of person I need in my life. As head of security, as more than that, if you want to be." He looked at her, hope dawning in his eyes. "I'd like that, a lot." She kissed him as the sun disappeared behind the skyline, the city lights flickering to life around them. 3 months later, at Thomas Wright's official return celebration, Elena stood on a stage before hundreds of employees, investors, and media representatives. 8 years ago, this company lost its founder, she said. "We thought we'd lost him forever. But the truth is, he never left us. His values, his vision, his commitment to doing what's right, those things lived on. And now he's back to see everything we've built in his name. Thomas stepped onto the stage to thunderous applause. He was healthier now, stronger, more like the man he used to be. The beard was gone, his hair neatly trimmed. He wore a suit and the silver pocket watch on a chain in his vest pocket. "I don't remember everything," Thomas told the crowd. "Some of those 8 years are gone forever, but I remember what matters. I remember why I built this company, to create something meaningful, to help people, to make the world a little bit better." He looked at Elena. "My daughter kept that dream alive. She fought for the truth when it would have been easier to accept lies. She saved my life. And now, together, we're going to take Wright Industries into a future I'm proud of." The crowd erupted in applause. Later, at the reception, Elena found Jason standing on the balcony with Mia, who was eating cake and telling Thomas about her school play. "There you are," Elena said, slipping her arm through Jason's. "Your speech was perfect," he said. "I meant every word." They watched as Thomas knelt down to listen to Maya, his face patient and kind. He'd fully embraced his role as her adoptive grandfather, attending her school events and teaching her how to draw. "I can't believe it's only been 9 months since Mia walked into that boardroom," Jason said. 9 months since everything changed. Do you ever think about what would have happened if she hadn't found the watch? If I hadn't kept it all those years? I try not to. It's too terrifying to imagine. He pulled her closer. "I'm glad I kept it. I'm glad I helped that man in the alley 8 years ago, even though I had no idea who he was. Sometimes one small act of kindness can change everything." Elena looked at her father laughing with Mia, at the thriving company around them, at the man beside her who'd risked everything to help her find the truth. "You're right," she said. "Sometimes one small act changes everything, because that's what this story was really about. Not just corporate fraud or attempted murder or long-lost fathers. It was about the choices we make when no one's watching. About keeping promises, even when they seem pointless. About fighting for truth, even when lies are easier. It was about a janitor who helped a stranger in an alley and kept a watch for 8 years. About a little girl who walked into a boardroom to return what her father had dropped. About a daughter who refused to believe her father was gone. And about second chances. For everyone. Thomas Wright had lost 8 years of his life, but he'd gained something too. The knowledge that his daughter loved him enough to tear down an empire to find him. The joy of watching her fall in love with a good man. The pleasure of being a grandfather to a little girl who called him family. Time is the only currency that matters. He'd lost time, but he'd also been given it back in ways he never expected. And standing on that balcony, watching his daughter smile, Thomas Wright decided that maybe, just maybe, it had all been worth it. Not the pain, not the loss, not the 8 years in that terrible room, but the love that brought him home. That was worth everything. And just like that, another story is over. I always wonder where you all are and what you're doing when you listen to these. If you feel like sharing, drop a comment and let me know. Are you on a long drive, working on something, or just winding down for the night? It's nice to picture the story finding a home with you, wherever you are. If you'd like more stories like this one to keep you company on your journey, you know what to do. Hitting subscribe and that little bell means you'll always have another one waiting for you when you need it. A simple like helps others find a companion in these tales too. Thanks for letting me share this space and time with you. It really is a privilege. Until the next one, stay safe out there.